Hello, and welcome to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast series. WWW is a platform where we provide a space for women to leverage collective wisdom, experiences, and inspiration from women powerhouses in our industry to become innovative game changers. We will be engaging in insightful conversations with women who have changed the face of businesses in our industry and trailblazers who have steered innovative and creative ideas. This is a must-listen podcast for women leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs to become visible, break glass ceilings, and to grow their impact. We believe that sharing these insights will be a catalyst for women in our industry to unleash their potentials and to seize the crisis as a turning point. So join our conversations by subscribing to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast. Hello, Beth. How are you doing? It's so lovely to have you with us today.
I'm great. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be here with you, Nisha.
Thank you for being here. And you just came back from a holiday. So how are you feeling coming back?
Well, you know, when there's a pandemic on, even though you're taking holiday, you don't necessarily take all your holiday time. So it was a little scattered with, little bits of work here and there. But overall, it was very good, nice and relaxed and some quality time with family.
All right. And all of us are now yearning for that holiday, that vacation, isn't it? It's been, for me, right? It has been almost about a year and a half since I took my last vacation. So, it's so enviable to hear that you have been on your vacation. Yeah. So, Beth, let me just begin a very important question that I have for you for today's session. You have been 11 years at the helm of the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario, and you have just moved on to taking this very, very important position at the smack of the COVID as the CEO of the Tourism Industry Association of Canada, and you also moved to Ontario. So what made you take this plunge and this challenge?
Well, I first of all love the industry and, have been working really closely with my colleagues across the country in my role at the head of TIO. Knowing that there was a lot of work to do to help this industry recover coming out of the pandemic. And when the opportunity presented itself, I just thought that I was in the right place at the right time to take on that challenge. And so I plunged right in, and apparently the board agreed with me. They hired me. It's been great. It's been 6 months, and I think that we've made a lot of progress. And I mean, there's a lot of work still to do, but I think we've made some progress.
Yeah, I think, for all the policymakers, you are in the hot seat at the moment with so many important decisions that have to be made at this point for our industry, which is really, really, really suffering. From Singapore to Canada, we see what is going on at the moment. It requires very, very careful strategic plans and tourism development recovery plans. So, what do you see yourself bringing into this new position that you have just assumed in the smack of the pandemic? And what are some of your top priorities at this moment in leading the industry through and perhaps into the post-COVID environment?
Great question. So what I'm bringing is I'm trying to really bring our industry together, to work together. There has never been a time when our industry, which is made up of so many smaller sectors, has needed some cohesiveness. And so we've really worked hard to align and collaborate with our industry partners. We're working through a coalition right now where we've brought together over 120 different organizations that represent different sectors and segments of our tourism industry here in Canada, and we really are stronger together as one voice. And so that alignment, that collaboration has been, I think, one of our strong points as we go forward. We're making some progress. We've, been able to get the federal government to acknowledge that the tourism industry was the first hit, the hardest hit, and is going to be the last to recover. We've been able to get, financial commitments from the government to continue to support our suite of sectors, even though other industries in the economy are starting to recover and coming back to basically full power. Our sector is not. And so we've been able to get the government to really understand that and to both vocally support the industry, but also put programs in place to continue to support the business owners and the employees that make up our suite of sectors.
I think now more than ever before, we need such interdependence and interrelationship between the various stakeholders, the various industry partners. I think such collaborations we have never seen before is now happening across the world, isn't it?
It really is. And that was something else that we did was Canada really hadn't had a seat at the global table. And so when I was at Tayo, I took that first step and we joined WTTC and started participating in their COVID task force, but also we started contributing to things like the development of the global standard practices for protocols for different segments of the industry. We started implementing the safe travel stamp here in Canada. And when I moved over to TIAC, I said to the board, we need to be at the table because there are going to be these global conversations around returning to a seamless traveler journey that we need to be a part of. Canada needs to be at the table. And so that's one of the big steps that I've taken is to really start to engage our organization on behalf of our industry with our partners around the world. And, through WTTC, but also through, relationships like, with the U.S. Travel Association or with my counterparts in other countries like Australia and Mexico and the UK.
And one of the things that we have also noticed is the need for leaders who believe in, collaborations, coalitions, and cohesiveness, especially in the current pandemic situation. And we've seen that happening in many parts of the world where leaders are now defined by these qualities, and it's really valuable to see that or hear that you, again, are one of those leaders who are focusing on these dimensions, So good on you, Beth.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Beth, one of the things that for us, we've been concerned over the last 1.5 years is that research has found that women have been more vulnerable to the COVID pandemic and have experienced more impact, and it has also become more evident that we need to address gender equality or gender inequality in a post-COVID future. And so tell me, what do you think? What can be done to recognize women's potential as drivers of a more sustainable ecosystem in the post-pandemic world?
So I have been long a supporter of, trying to mentor and elevate women in our industry, and certainly have had a number of young women, right out of school work for me and have gone on to, other positions and start to elevate within the industry. And it really is a sense of pride to see that. And you're absolutely right. When the pandemic hit and we had to start to work from home, and we saw people get furloughed. A lot of the positions that were affected were positions traditionally held by women. Mm-hmm. And this has been a real struggle. And one of the things that added to that was the need to homeschool children while you were trying to work full-time from home. And so I think that what we're going to see going forward is a real balance between that. I know that in speaking with my colleagues and speaking with other leaders of other organizations, a hybrid model is going to become the norm. We're going to see a return to the office, probably starting this fall, but it's going to be in collaboration with our employees. It's going to be a choice to come in, 2 or 3 days a week and work at home the other 2 or 3 days a week, so that you can maintain that balance. We've proved that it works quite well, quite effectively, to be able to work remotely. And so I think that's a great step in the right direction. The other thing that, and it might sound weird coming from somebody in the tourism industry, but one of the things that we know needs to happen is we need more affordable childcare so that women can afford to get back into the workforce. And that's something that our federal government made a commitment on in the last budget. They made this commitment to go to $10 a day childcare, and the provinces have stepped up to work with the federal government on that. And that's a huge win for women and for families to be able to access affordable childcare so that they can continue to not only to work, but to grow and excel within their chosen field. So that's certainly a great step in the right direction. We also need to, here in Canada anyway, we're going to have a real challenge as far as bringing people back to work in our sector, just in general. And so our responsibility as a sector is to really get out there and talk about all the great opportunities and all the benefits of working in our tourism sector. And, it's funny, I often talk about this because people think tourism, they think planes, hotels, amusement parks. They don't think about all of the other amazing things that happen within our suite of sectors. They don't think about the festivals and the events and the attractions and the business travel and the meetings and the conventions and all of that. We're starting to see domestic travel come back right now, but all of that is part of our sector until it's all back. We're not going to recover, but what we've got is this great unique opportunity right now to really start talking about all of the opportunities that exist within our suite of sectors. I often say you can do anything and work in tourism. You can be a lawyer and work in tourism. You can be a graphic artist. You can be an accountant. You can take your skill set and take it into a very dynamic, engaging, and exciting industry.
Interesting. Something that really interesting that you just mentioned about, that people, tend to view tourism as, predominantly attractions or the aviation, hotel. But of course, we've got such amazing other services and products in our industry. But there is something that we have also noticed, that women's entrepreneurship in the tourism, or women's involvement in the tourism industry, has been very often feminized, or it has been related, it has been very much anchored on service related to low productivity, for example, homestays and handicraft, or predominantly even hospitality, in the hotel sector. And there has been somehow gender stereotyping, have you noticed that also in Canada?
Yes, we have. And it is certainly something that we have been working very closely with our industry to change. You know, one of the things that we have been very pleased to see in recent years is the increase in the number of women who are applying for and taking, tourism and management classes and programs at the post-secondary level. And this is exactly what we want to see. We want to see women coming out of these programs ready to go into a supervisory position and then move up into that management position. And we want them to have the tools at their disposal in order to be able to do that. One of the things that we get kind of criticized for is because it's a challenge to, we've had a labor challenge over the last number of years. People get promoted before they're ready, and they don't have the necessary supports that they need to have in order to make that leap. And so then you get a work environment that is perhaps not as conducive to growth as it should be. And so I think that the post-secondary school and the industry itself has really stepped up to the mark to put programs in place to provide better opportunity for training people to go to that next level of management. So I think that that's really important. And I have to say, hats off to one of the hotel associations in Toronto, where they decided that they really needed to up their game in this respect. And so they created, through a donation with a local college, they created a hotelier program specifically for women to move them up into this middle management, and hopefully they'll move on from there, but to get them kind of over that hump and into middle management. So this is an advanced industry. We're starting to really put our money where our mouths are and support women and support that gender equality across all levels of positions.
And you mentioned about how hotels or the hospitality industry is becoming more aware and are responding appropriately. So do you see more gender-focused training, like women's leadership programs or digital training or entrepreneurship programs which are centered on women? Because we have seen more I would say programs which are very much male centric, whether it's entrepreneurship or MBA programs, but do you see a shift towards more gender focused sort of training?
Well, we're starting to see that, and we certainly were starting to see a little bit of that ahead of the pandemic, but that has, I guess, been put on the back burner for now. And I don't know that we've really seen a lot of it in Canada. We've certainly seen US programs become available to more Canadians. So, whether it's through Yale, Harvard, Cornell, they've all have women's leadership programs that they are making available to Canadians, and I think that that's another step for us to undertake with our post-secondary schools here in Canada, is to look at those opportunities, both at the academic level, but also working directly with our industry and our industry groups. And we can be doing that as well on our own. There is an organization here in Canada called With.org. It's Women in Tourism and Hospitality, and they have held an annual conference for women in the tourism and hospitality industries for the last number of years, and are trying to tie it into not just senior management, but that, they're trying to encourage leaders to bring, their their mentees to the conference. They're trying to bring, their up and comers to come and experience that level of conversation as well.
Mm. And another area of concern that was reported at the UNWTO's report was that women are often very constrained in their access to human capital, financial capital, technology, and other resources. Although the tourism industry is an amazing industry which allows for entrepreneurship, micro businesses to flourish. And so, based on your over 20 years of experience as the president and CEO of the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario, and you have represented more than 200,000 tourism businesses. So from your experience and knowledge, how do you think women can be further empowered in the tourism value chain? And what sort of initiatives could we introduce to help foster more entrepreneurship initiatives among women?
So I think it's a matter of being very purposeful in our efforts around this, and working with organizations that are working very closely with women. So in Canada, and again around the world, I'll use culinary as an example, and I really think that the Culinary Tourism Alliance here in Canada has done a fantastic job of helping women who have a food story or a part of that food value chain to really develop their product and to really develop their experience. And they do it on a one-on-one kind of basis. And it was so well, they do such a good job that we engaged them to do workshops with us during the pandemic, actually, while people had the time, their businesses weren't open, to spend some time on looking at themselves and looking at internally how they're delivering their business, how they could expand, how they could develop something new. And I think that it's those kinds of opportunities. I think that there are no big widespread solutions that we can, like they always say, one size doesn't fit all. And I think that's where we need to be. I think we need to really get to the point where we're acknowledging we need to be more focused in our training and in our support and in our mentoring with entrepreneurs, especially women, so that they can feel supported and that they can get that unique opportunity to get in there and work on their business directly. I will tell you that here in Canada, women have equal opportunity to access all of the funding programs that the government has put on the table for assisting tourism businesses through this pandemic. And that's a really good thing. We've seen some businesses that, without that support, they would not be here at this point in time. And they still are. And, we've been working really hard to make sure that they'll still continue to have access to those funding programs through to, next spring, where we think that the recovery is going to really start to take off.
Right. I mean, it's really so, encouraging to hear what you have just shared, Beth, because I think these are some of the best practices that perhaps, we could share across the world that I think would even motivate certain destinations which are struggling with such structural problems. And one of the amazing things that this pandemic has done to many countries, including Singapore, is to raise awareness of the structural barriers and constraints that have been impediments to the trajectory of women. And it's really nice to hear what Canada is doing. I would love to find out more.
Well, and I think the other thing that's really cool is, if you look at the leadership team and kind of across Canada right now, there's an awful lot of women in the top spots. And that bodes well for the future, I believe. If we look at Destination Canada, which is our federal, marketing arm of our industry. It's being led by a woman. Her senior management team is almost all women. TIEX being led by a woman. Many of the provincial organizations also have women at the leadership level. So this is a really good change. When I first started working in this industry, I was often the only woman and surrounded by, gray hairs and blue suited red tied men. and now it's not that way. And I think that the dynamic between the genders in our industry has changed quite a lot. And I think that there's a huge amount of respect for what women are bringing to our industry and how they're helping to set our industry up for growth.
Right. I mean, that's what research also shows, when there are female tourism policy makers or even tourism ministers who are female, the policies tend to be more favorable towards women, in our industry particularly. So, I mean, it just is, again, another really, really encouraging news that you have just shared, that in Canada, you're seeing more and more visibility, of women at the decision-making tables. And the other thing, Beth, I also wanted to ask you is this, which is a major concern for us at World Women Tourism as well, that is sexual harassment in the workplace, particularly in the tourism and hospitality industry, which discourages women's participation in the tourism labor force. And in our research, we were looking at certain countries like Egypt, which Ministry of Tourism in Egypt came up with a gender equality seal, which seeks to close the gender gap, as well as promotes non-discrimination of staff recruitment and training, and also in Costa Rica and several parts of Latin America. So as a tourism policy maker and who has also led advocacy efforts for the tourism industry, what are your views on similar policies and training, in the area of zero tolerance for sexual harassment of women in the tourism workspace?
Well, obviously, I fully support zero tolerance, and we have worked very closely with governments at the provincial level as well as at the international level on things like, violence in the workplace, gender equality, equal pay, and human trafficking in our industry as well. So these are issues that are being openly discussed, that are being dealt with, that policy is being designed to counter the negative impacts of these kinds of activity. And I'm really pleased to see that. I mean, I don't know, 4 years ago, I don't think we were talking about the fact that human trafficking was taking place in our hotels. Right. Now we are, and we're talking about it loudly and openly, and it's a topic that the politicians are paying huge attention to. The same with gender pay, the same with gender equality in the workplace, and these are issues that, again, don't necessarily say tourism, but they are important issues that all businesses need to be paying attention to. And so when we're working on these kinds of policy initiatives, we're working collaboratively with other partners like the Chamber of Commerce or like the Business Council or, the Retail Council, other organizations that represent industry that employ large amounts of women.
We really hope there will be a shift towards, such policies in many parts of the world, including maybe we'll see that in Canada under your leadership.
Well, that's what we're really hoping, and certainly, we're certainly seeing that people are sitting up and taking notice, and it certainly is. It's on my own personal priority list. So when we are working on our policy agenda, there are issues that are front and center because they have to be because of circumstance out there right now, like for instance the impact of the pandemic on our industry. But that doesn't mean we're not working on those other pieces that are really important. That doesn't mean we're not paying attention to things like affordable housing. If we don't have affordable housing, then it makes it harder for anyone to work in our industry, let alone women. Looking at transportation, looking at access to broadband. These are all policy initiatives that we are paying attention to, that we are in conversation with government on, because they have an impact on the people who work in our sector. And we want to make sure that the people who work in our sector have access to the best jobs, and they can do so in a way where they're living in a comfortable situation with access to transit, access to, as I said earlier, childcare, so that they can lead a meaningful life.
And I think, hearing you, I mean, there, as leaders like yourself, you're facing so many complex issues, in the current pandemic. And I'm watching several leaders as well, how they are, managing these complexities, what is being done in different from what used to be before the pandemic. So in your opinion, how has leadership changed during this highly volatile and uncertain period? And if we were to look ahead, 1 year from now, what do you think would have changed in terms of leadership and leaders, particularly in our industry?
Well, we go back to the beginning of this conversation and talked about, alignment and collaboration. Mm-hmm. And I think there's been a big change there. An awful lot of organizations have come together, an awful lot of leaders have come together, and they've checked their ego at the door. Definitely. They're not wearing their hat, they're not wearing their hotel hat or their airline hat. They're coming as genuine leaders of the industry and are talking about, okay, what can we do together for the betterment of the whole of the industry and not just one segment or one business. And that has been a phenomenal change. And it's not to say that people didn't work, together in the past, but it was I think it's just done with more purpose now. I think it's, I'm just seeing more, it's more organic. It's absolutely, people mean it when they come to the table. It's not, they're not looking for an ulterior motive.
I think we're seeing more authentic leadership, more purposeful leadership now. And what a brilliant thing you were saying, the way people leave their ego at the doors and come in now with a higher purpose. And I think that's what the pandemic has done to many of us. And, as a testament of your leadership in the industry, you were recently named as one of the top 50 women in travel by the Global Business Travel Association. And many of them regard you, and I've been reading a lot about you, and many people have regarded you as an inspirational leader for more than 2 decades, and a very strong spokesperson for the provincial tourism. So how would you describe Beth Porter as a leader?
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one to answer always. Well, first of all, I was absolutely surprised and shocked to have learned that I was named to one of the top 50 women in tourism. And I'm very honored to be in such select company. As a leader, I think that if you spoke to my team, I think you would find that I'm very open leader. I'm very eager to get my team's ideas around me. I'm a firm believer that you can't dismiss an idea without really understanding the pros and cons of the idea. And so, there's none of this, well, we've always done it this way, so that's how we should be doing it again. Let's be creative. Let's be open. We're in an industry that is so dynamic, and let's take advantage of that, and let's make sure that as we're serving that industry, because that is what we do, that we are communicating. Our communications are open, they're transparent, and that and one of the most important things that I could say is if our members, if the industry doesn't see themselves in the work that we're doing, then we're not doing it right.
And Beth, I think beneath this, the warmth that I sense, when I see you and speak with you, and the softness, there is a strong woman and a visionary leader, and I think that is what inspires the women and the team that you have, and I'm sure, in the current situation in Canada, you would probably lead your team and tourism to a better place, in the current pandemic and post-pandemic.
Well, see, now you've made me blush.
And Beth, in this podcast, right, we call this Women We Watch, and we want to share the lived experiences and narratives of women leaders who are sources of inspiration to us, and that is the reason why we wanted to have you here, because you have been an inspiration for many people, whether it's in Canada or around the world. So who is that one woman that you watch?
Oh, well, there's more than one. I would go back to the Culinary Tourism Alliance. Rebecca McKenzie is the head of that organization, and she has reinvented that organization a number of times, and she's currently really bringing the food value chain conversation and the work that they're doing. She's really upping the level. She's working closely with the UNWTO. She's working with different countries around the world on helping them develop their culinary strategies, and she does it with a small team, but she's a force of nature, and she, like me, works very closely with a lot of women, mentors a lot of young people coming up through her organization, and right now, through all of this, through the pandemic, she decided to go off and get her her master's. So it's she's just taking on the world, as well as investing time in herself, and I just think that's amazing.
Wow. Okay. I believe she's so honored to hear this, that you look up to her.
Yeah.
Beth, there are so many things that we spoke about today, and it triggered a lot of thoughts in my head as well, looking at what we can do here in Singapore based on what you have witnessed in Canada and what you have steered in Canada as well. So what is the one takeaway that you would want listeners of this episode to get from your sharing or your experience?
I think I'll go back to that comment around around collaboration, and this is more than ever now and in the years to come, as we build out after this pandemic, that we need to do it as a cohesive group, and we need to be an industry that is coming together with one goal, and the goal is to get back to delivering amazing experiences for people, whether it's for leisure travel or business travel. It's delivering that seamless travel experience. So we work in collaborative with governments and really doing it authentically. Like I said earlier, checking the ego at the door, and just we're so much stronger for pooling our resources and working together on all of this. So that would be my goal, or the legacy I'd like to see from this pandemic.
What a lovely thing to say and end this conversation today, and I think that's also my vision, that we move towards that situation in which is it's going to be, it's not just good for the tourism industry, but I think our tourism industry can make such huge impacts to communities and to the world. And that's really, really something that I hope for as well. So thank you so much, Beth. And I really am hoping for the borders to open, because, I've not been to Canada, and I've only seen Canada across the world, the Niagara Falls. And I've always want to come to Canada. And I really wish to be there and see you. And if our listeners would want to connect with you online, Beth, could you share what would be the best way to find out more about you and the work that you do?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn as Beth Potter, and I'm happy to connect with folks through that medium at any time.
All right. Thank you. And till we meet again across the world or somewhere in the world, I'll be watching you online and following your work to see how you're going to steer Canada successfully, and I wish you all the very best. And I think you're going to do amazing work for Canada. And thank you so much. It's been a sheer honor being with you on this episode. So wishing you all the very best. And thank you so much, Beth.
Oh, thank you for having me here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Beth. Yeah. Wow, I loved every minute of that session I had with Beth Porter. It was such an uplifting experience listening into a highly passionate and authentic leader. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. To all our listeners, thank you so much for being with us on this episode 4. Season 1. If you like this episode or would like to share your views, please connect with us on womenrewatchtourism@gmail.com. And please share this episode with women around you, and I'm sure you'll inspire them. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, as well as subscribe to us on all major podcast platforms. So till we meet again on our next episode, this is Nisha, your host, signing off. Thank you, and stay inspired.